Thank you for joining me today as we look at my fourth speech pathology appointment that has occurred post-op my Wendler's modified glottoplasty. The following takes place 72 days after my surgery, and as you'll be able to see, healing is continuing, although it's not complete yet, and there's still a fair amount of practice to do as I get used to my new instrument. It is still very much like going through puberty in reverse, and that your larynx does not behave the way you expect it to, and all of your existing muscle memories need to be readdressed. Using your old muscle memory with the new vocal box, voice box, just does not work. Winds up with a voice somewhere between your old voice and something really bizarre. So I hope this is useful to you. Oh, hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Feeling well?
Good.
Yeah. You sound good.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I am doing better. I've been doing a lot of practicing. And sometimes, it's been really good when I'm doing all the practicing, and I found another source actually that's helped a lot, which is trans voice lessons on YouTube. But then when I stop practicing, I just start talking to people, then I can kind of just fall down a little bit, like it's doing right now. And I'm down around like 150. But if I'm actually thinking about it, then it's up where it should be.
Okay. And you went to the virtual VCU first?
I signed up for it. It actually hasn't happened yet.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's in a day or two. It's soon.
Yeah, I feel like
I think I want to say March 8th, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, so while you're practicing, the sentences I've given you, it goes pretty well.
Yeah, actually, it's been going really well.
And it sounds, it's sounding more, just there's more clarity, less bruskiness and roughness.
Well, there's still a fair amount of like hoarseness kind of sound, like graveliness, but yeah. But yeah, I have been doing a fair amount of practicing because I feel like, I've never, like we talked about before, I've never really used my voice that much, so I kind of have an underperforming voice, and according to these other teachers, to really do the method they were teaching, you have to really work at it and strengthen your voice, because they are, changing the resonances in the throat using different muscles, and then also adjusting the way the vocal folds are. So it takes a fair amount of strength, I think, to do that.
Yeah. But does it feel easier now than before the surgery?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. It's easily raised the pitch of my voice about 50 hertz. And it's made it much easier to access the higher ranges, and then it's actually extended it up quite a bit too. Like, I couldn't go above 300 before, and now I can go up to like 450, 500. So.
Wow, yeah. But not like talk up there, but you can like...
No, I can sing, yeah. So like,
Yeah, that's pretty high. That's great. Yeah, it's, some of that work that we were doing before the surgery kind of continues.
Yeah, for sure.
But with a boost. So, the physical and the mental effort is not quite as high as it used to be to get there. So it's more manageable to maintain, but it's still going to require some amount of effort. So
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and it's gonna take a lot of practice, I think, before it becomes second nature.
right.
Yeah.
Right now, as you're talking, would you say that you're making an effort? What's your effort level now?
I'm definitely making an effort. It's just like I can only manage it about half the time, I think. And I guess now, like talking to you, this is still a little bit on the low side, but this is all I can do a lot of the time. But when I am really thinking about it, then, there's also just some muscles need to get tightened that you didn't used to get tightened, and the opposite. Some of them have to relax that didn't used to relax. So that's, it's something to work on, I think, and just keep practicing until it does have to become second nature, I think, at a certain stage. And
yeah, definitely. It's just kind of building those new neural pathways and,
yeah, muscle memory. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does feel like the muscle memory thing is the biggest part of it.
And yeah, again, that's just practice. And I think that, like, dedicated, obviously having conversations is really helpful, but also that dedicated practice with, the sentences where you're really, like, focusing on, okay, how am I feeling? How does it sound? What can I change to get it to where I want it to be?
Yeah.
And on that note, do you feel like when you are practicing and really focused on it, is the voice that you're producing something that you're happy with?
Sometimes, not completely, and I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out. Like, I guess there's I'm trying to go for a sound, and I'm not sure exactly how to do it, which is what I'm trying to figure out. Like, sometimes it gets too airy, but then when it gets constricted more, then it just sounds buzzy. It sounds really overfull. So I guess I'm trying to find the balance to sound something that sounds a little bit more natural. It would be nice to be able to feel like I didn't have to clear my throat every 2 seconds too, but I'm not sure if that's what's that's about, but it does feel like my throat just is constantly needing to be cleared. Maybe that's just part of healing. I don't know.
Yeah, do you feel like there's something there that you're trying to clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say trying to avoid that as much as possible. I know it's hard, but sometimes it can become kind of this, like, habit, in the sense of, like, also every time you clear your throat, it's a little bit, it's like the vocal cords are kind of slamming into each other.
Right, yeah. Well, I've been trying to swallow instead of it.
Swallowing hard,
Yeah.
a hum, taking a sip of water. Some people really have good luck with just ice chips. I don't know how readily available those are to you.
No, and I don't like ice either.
But the idea there is if you can reduce the overall amount of times you clear your throat, then over time you'll have less of it.
Okay. Yeah.
But it also, it could be, or it probably is, because of the healing. Because you didn't have this issue before the surgery, or did you?
No.
Okay. And do you have issues with, like, allergies and postnasal drip and just, like, mucus that's
Not in a while, no. My allergies tend to show up about 3 years after I move to a new place.
How long have you been in Virginia?
Not that long yet, yeah, so like my body has to get used to the environment, and then it says, oh, okay, it's time to start attacking myself again.
Interesting. I had the opposite. It was like 3 years of really bad, and then it kind of adjusted with the help of medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that could be a cause potentially for clearing your throat. If there's something like dripping or irritating you, then that's not going to help the situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to hear what your practice is sounding like.
Okay.
See what we can kind of tweak. I'm just gonna grab my phone real quick with the pitch up on it. And when you're practicing, do you typically use the pitch up?
Oh yeah, and I frequently have it just on my running on my computer. So if I'm on the phone or something, I can see how I'm doing.
And do you feel like you're able to make adjustments in real time to get it higher?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Okay.
It doesn't. My voice does not always respond, which is part of the reason why I feel like I need to practice a lot more. Whoa there. One time. Why me?
Can we just start with a few just oohs first?
Sure.
And then I wanted to ask you, is there, when you're doing this, are you aiming for a specific pitch, or just kind of like thinking, okay, I'm trying to go higher without a certain target?
I've been practicing aiming for around 220 or so, 230. So, yeah. Ooh, we were away.
Can I have you do something? So it almost sounds a little bit like you're like chanting it or singing it. Can you do it a little more like, whoa there.
Sure.
We were away.
Whoa there.
Mm-hmm.
One time.
Mm-hmm.
Why me?
Good.
We were away. Where to? Wide open. Whip it up. Would you? Warm weather. Well then. White wallet. Wander away. Which one? Waterfall. Wait for me. We won the game.
How is that feeling physically? It looks effortful.
It is. All speaking is effortful, really, at this point.
What's that?
Pretty much all speaking is kind of effortful, it feels like.
Even if you're not thinking about pitch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because I'm trying to pay attention, even if I'm not really thinking about it. I'm still trying to, but I'm not always successful.
Okay, why don't you try something?
I mean, physically it's not really effortful, but mentally it is, I suppose.
You're saying physically it's not?
Not that effortful. I mean, there is effort involved with it, but it's not extreme.
Okay. I want you to try this. Go. Woe is me.
Woe is me.
Okay. Want to.
Want to.
I'm gonna do one time.
One time.
Why me?
Why me?
Wide open.
Wide open.
Okay, were you trying to go higher just now?
No.
This, or just kind of what came out?
That's just what came out. Yeah.
Because you were like 350, which is pretty high. So that whimpering sound, basically what's happening when you do that is your thyroid is thyroid tilt. It's tilting forward, which helps to put tension on the vocal cords, and that tension can result in a raise in pitch, and it helps them kind of approximate together more easily. And just like kind of any of these character traits, some people have a little more in their speaking voice. So it tends to, like, perceptually, it's kind of like when you have like that sweetness kind of in the voice, like, oh, okay, you know, as opposed to if you're keeping it very vertical, there's just less of that kind of inflecting that happens.
Okay.
So kind of using that, and you do it, I mean, you kind of do it naturally to some extent. But I almost think about it as like, if you're doing like a telephone voice, you know, like, hi, welcome to, which I don't, you know, I'm not saying that's how you want to sound all the time, but kind of thinking about that as a way to like facilitate getting that pitch a little higher without just thinking like, okay, I'm just going high. And by just doing that whimper sound, it seemed to really shoot your pitch up pretty high.
Yeah, it did.
So that's something to like think about as you're going, you know, as a way to adjust. Or, you know, obviously whimpering might be kind of weird to do in a conversation.
Yeah. Most conversations, yeah.
But even something like, it's a similar physiological process as the whimper. So,
okay. Yeah.
One time.
One time.
Why me?
Why me?
Try whip it up.
Whip it up.
Would you?
Would you?
Warm weather.
Warm weather.
Well then.
Well then.
I'm noticing between some of these trials is you kind of jump around a bit as far as pitch. Is that, why do you think that's happening?
Because I don't have very good control.
Okay. Okay. Is there a place where it feels more comfortable? Like, is it in that?
Yeah, well, I suppose if I don't think about it at all, then it kind of winds up right around here. If I'm not thinking about it. It's actually pretty comfortable if I'm up here most of the time, but then it's easy for me to forget about it, then fall back, which is like the muscle memory thing.
Well, what you kind of just demonstrated, like, it's pretty easy for me to be up here, so when you did that, you were kind of around the 200 mark.
Yeah.
180 to 200, so I think that's and that sounds to me a little bit more like it's less effortful, more natural.
Yeah, it is.
Because in those really, like, when we were up around 300, that just sounded like something that would be really hard to maintain. And it just felt like even though you could be up there, it felt like you also were potentially on the brink of like a break.
Well, like I said, I think I do feel like my voice needs a lot of work. Just exercise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're also still healing.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, you're, what, a little over a month out?
About 2 months.
About 2 months.
Yeah.
So we say there's a fair amount of healing that happens in the first 3 months, and then, it can take up to 6 to really, 3 months is kind of healing and all the inflammation going down, and then there's also just the, re-coordination of all the mechanisms, because the pieces have been changed.
Yeah, it doesn't work the same, for sure.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense that you feel like sometimes you don't know what's going to come out, because you're still trying to kind of like hold the reins and figure out.
Yeah, right. How does this work?
Yeah.
Like a new violin player.
What's that?
Like a young violin player.
Yes, I mean, I know nothing about playing the violin, but it looks pretty hard. But yeah, it's a new instrument, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try some of the sentences.
Okay. We won the game. What's going on? When will you be back? Will you meet me later? Why won't you come? What's wrong? We never stay home. Would you like some more? One day at a time. Wash your hands, please. Warm weather is coming. We have to line up for lunch. We'll see you outside. Why don't you stop by later? Will you stay for dinner? Whoa, hold on. What are you doing? Well, I don't know. Winter lasts too long. Except for me.
You like winter?
I love winter, yeah. I'm not looking forward to spring.
You're not looking forward to spring?
I know. Well, I'm not looking forward to all of the insects everywhere.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, I'm not looking forward to summer in Virginia, but spring I do enjoy. Yeah, that's fair. I guess if I spent
I like it cold. You know, not everybody likes it cold like I do. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, you could always move somewhere north of here.
Yeah, I've thought about it.
Yeah. Okay, how did that feel effort-wise going through it?
It was okay, actually. Yeah. No big feelings. I mean, there is a little bit of effort physically, but it's okay.
And another thing to kind of help with raising the pitch and also changing the resonating chamber in so the oral chamber, making it essentially smaller, which when you have a smaller chamber where the sound is resonating, that favors higher frequency, like harmonics. So,
and it seems like that's actually the most important thing, is getting the resonances right, even more than the pitch.
Because that can really change, like, if you make, if I really try to open up the back of my throat, I'm not actually changing my pitch, but I'm just making it bigger, and so it has like a darkness to it. Like
it's very hollow sounding, yeah.
Yeah, and then going in the other direction, if I really raise up to high tongue and make the space smaller, kind of constrict the area right above my vocal cords, then you get that. I mean, it's a little bit like brassy and bright, you know, maybe not something you're
right,
looking for.
Yeah.
But it also starts to sound more high pitched, even though, again, I'm not actually changing my pitch.
Yeah, that seems to be the biggest factor in the male and female voices, is like a resonance, both resonance through the vocal tract and then resonance in the mouth too. They both have a huge, I mean, it seems like the resonance in the throat is the major one, but then the resonance in the mouth can adjust that slightly. So you can do fine tuning.
Yeah, and changing, you know, even like changing tongue position can both affect not just how it's resonating in your mouth, but also in your throat. So when you have that kind of higher base of tongue, that creates a little more room for your larynx to raise up, so to get into that more high larynx position.
Okay, so I'd be more like talking like, this is kind of a voice I had tried out before, but I don't know, it didn't always seem to work that well. It seemed a little weird, but it's something I've worked on.
Yeah, I mean, it has a certain quality that, you know, that's a little more, I think like bright and kind of brassy and a little bit like you know, like that a little bit like, I'm in a music hall, you know. But you can sort of like,
I think of sorority sister kind of thing. I think sorority sister.
Oh yeah, a little bit of that too. But it can definitely, you can also sort of like turn the dial up and down on some of this stuff, like but playing around with that, like trying to, you know, also if you, tongue position can affect the pitch perceived too, like if making an E, when people hold that at E, because it's a high tongue position versus a ah, it always sounds higher. So obviously, like as you are articulating and saying different sounds, you can't keep your tongue completely still, but kind of thinking about, it's also the mouth, like a smaller space and almost like a small smile instead of like...
Right, so you compress the space in your mouth and it just gets really small.
Yeah, and it changes the way that, you know, it colors the voice.
Yeah.
I had to hear it just now when you were demonstrating it. So that's something to
I guess it's just, yeah, I have to work on getting the balance right so it all kind of works together and doesn't sound weird.
Yes. Yeah. And, sometimes it's helpful to practice some of this stuff at like a 10, like really full on. And then it's like, okay, what does that feel like? And then once I really hone in on it, I can kind of turn it down a little bit, to have a little bit of it. So I think that's something to play around with so we're not so hyper-focused on pitch. Because I think it matters, but like to your point, playing around with the resonance can also help you get a sound that you like with potentially less effort too. And it's almost like we're kind of making this recipe, like, okay, we're going to do high tongue and small smile and, like, think about this and that, and that together will get you to a place that you want to be.
Yeah.
But I think, every time that I see you, like, you're sounding better and better. Like,
yeah, I think so. I feel like it's sounding better. And I feel like it's a lot easier to make because I'm starting out from a better place after the surgery, it's easier to make some of those adjustments.
Because you're not putting so much mental effort on just keeping the pitch high.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But I think those are the things, as far as kind of the prosody and the vowels, like that's all pretty good, just making sure that you don't get into, but I rarely ever hear it like a monotonous tone where you're kind of here all the time. I don't really hear that with you ever. But just, the more you're like keeping those inflections in there helps keep you from kind of like ending up sitting at the bottom of your range.
Yeah.
And I think, just practicing and kind of like incorporating some of this stuff and seeing what creates the best sounding voice and the most kind of like sustainable way of keeping it. Like, is it, for some people, it's like, I'm going to look at the pitch app and I'm trying to aim for a pitch. And then for some people, it's like, oh, if I just think about keeping my tongue higher, then it gets me where I want to be and I don't have to look at the pitch app. So all of these things, it just depends on which facilitators kind of get you there with the least amount of effort.
That's one thing that helps. I also plug my headphones into my recorder, so I'm like listening through it through the microphone as opposed to just through my ears, and that seems to help a bit. Because then it's kind of like an external reference that's not what I'm used to hearing in my head.
Yeah. Or, I know you make videos and things, but like recording yourself and listening back. And that could be a good tool, like, as you try some of this different stuff, like trying to change, like make the oral cavity smaller and like go through your sentences, listen back, and then do the high tongue and see how that is, and sort of maybe like isolating some of these things and seeing how they impact the tone. And then,
I think that's a really good idea. One thing I've been working on is like when I'm changing, sorry, we're getting some feedback. When I'm changing the larynx, it seems like I can't change the larynx without changing the pitch at the same time. So I'm not really sure why that is. Like, I'm trying to raise the larynx up, but then even when I do that, it always raises the pitch at the same time. Not completely, but it does help reduce the resonance, which is good.
Yeah, when you raise your larynx, it will usually result in a increase in pitch. Also, just because you are, that's part of like how you change the resonating chamber. So the further down it is, that makes it sound lower.
Right, so if you do it down here, then it's really deep.
Yeah, like, I'll do this sometimes patients, like, the monster mash. Do you know that mash? You do the monster mash. You can really, like, feel the difference.
That's a good one.
Like, bark like a big dog. Oof, oof, and a small dog.
Right.
You know, and then you can feel it. I mean, it's kind of silly, but it can be helpful to actually, like, physically feel how much it shifts.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And that you really have, you know, a lot of control over that. It's just kind of fine-tuning it.
Right. Well, fine-tuning it, getting it to where you want, and then making it automatic with a lot of practice, I think.
Yeah.
So, I found a book that's out of copyright, so I think I'm going to read it out loud.
Okay.
I can make a video out of it. It'll make it worthwhile for me, or for interest.
Okay. Wait, you said the book isn't copyrighted?
It's too old. Yeah, it's out of copyright.
Oh, it's like, okay, I remember this is a dumb question, but is the Bible copyrighted?
Not there. You could have translations of it be copyrighted, but no, the Bible is not copyrighted.
Because people like read it and quote it, and
because even the King James version is more than 100 years old, so that's, you know, fair game. If there was a new translation, then that could be copyrighted, but no, the Bible's not copyrighted.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of like examples of books that are really old that might not be copyrighted.
Yeah, Winnie the Pooh just came out from under copyright, so I'm thinking maybe that would be a good one.
Well, it could be. I mean, sometimes also just, you know, doing voices or doing
different voices, yeah.
Characters, like, yeah, I can't think of a good example now, but, you know, thinking about that, like, kind of more, a little more, like, brassy, twangy, like, it makes me think of, I don't know if you watch Family Guy, but the wife.
Oh, yeah.
She's always like, Tina, you know, kind of has that. So sometimes, yeah, thinking about imitating a specific voice and what you do in order to achieve that, that can be kind of a good exercise. Like, okay, what am I doing? You know, I'm like sort of intuitively trying to...
Right, what are the actual changes that I'm doing? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're on a good track. It's just like time and practice. And maybe playing around with some of these different ways of manipulating your anatomy to see what results in a voice that you like and what's the kind of easiest to maintain.
Yeah, that's the voice that I like. That's not easy either, but I feel like it's getting there slowly. I mean, in a lot of ways, it still sounds like me, which is fine, but it needs to sound like the one I want too, which, you know, I think I had a long time ago, and I just need to get back to that again. You know, before transition, I need to be back to where I was.
Yeah.
Confident.
Well, go ahead.
Confident in what I'm doing.
Right. Right. And I think also practicing with like friends or family, but sometimes also that practice that you can do with like strangers is kind of nice because they don't have an idea of what your voice sounded like or should sound like.
Absolutely. I actually did a lot of my initial development with my voice when I had a job as a taxi driver.
Oh, right, yeah.
So,
yeah, you told me that.
Yeah. It's a lot easier, honestly. That made it so much easier to just like say, okay, well, here's a stranger, let's try it again.
Yeah, you can just kind of put on a persona and they don't know that it's any different. Or like calling customer service or like ordering, you know, whatever. I have a lot of patients. I have a lot of transgender patients that love video games, interestingly. But they'll say, like, those kind of games you play, like, online with a lot of people.
Sure.
And that seems to be, like, a great place to practice as well. So, yeah, whatever opportunities.
The younger generation.
What's that?
Younger people. I played a lot of video games before, but I haven't in a couple of years. So.
Yeah. It never quite clicked with me, even when I was younger. But, yeah. But now I think they're also way more, like, immersive and kind of.
Oh, for sure. Well, we have virtual reality now.
Right. Which, I feel like that stuff it makes me feel dizzy. But
I'm sure you're not the only one.
yeah. But, okay. So, I'll email you some of the stuff that we talked about, the thyroid tilting, the larynx position, the tongue position, just stuff to, like, and how to kind of find that.
Okay.
And then maybe incorporate that into your practice and see how it helps or doesn't help.
Okay, sure.
And then you can do, you don't have to say these sentences that I've given you. I think they were good in the beginning when you were kind of having a lot of strain and roughness. Kind of why I chose those WH sounds, but you can definitely really use anything you want.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes like poetry or song lyrics or something that has like a little bit more of like a rhythm can be nice than just like reading out of a manual or something. But really all of it is good. And then next time we could practice maybe like some of that maintenance piece, like really staying in your target voice throughout like a structured conversation. So
Okay. Yeah.
something with kind of like shorter responses, because that's a little bit easier than when you get into the elaborative thought. It tends to get a lot harder.
It is. Well, just keeping it up for like a few paragraphs, that can be the harder thing, I think. And that's part of the reason why I feel like I need more practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just like when you're, working out, not that I do this, but I assume, like, the more you're sort of practicing, the stronger you get. So it's kind of training those muscles in the same way, but they're teeny tiny muscles.
Yeah.
Big ones. Yeah.
May you be well. May you be blessed. May you be filled with unconditional love for all beings. May you be fully at peace. May you be happy. May you be loved. Aloha.